I had always wanted a garden. I had grown a few things with my family when I was young, mainly tomatoes, but I wouldn't consider one tomato plant a garden. But now, for my first growing season at my new house, I want to plant a garden. We went to Home Depot for a completely unrelated reason, but I always have to walk through the garden center just because. And while I was doing this one day, I found these beautiful garden boxes for an incredibly reasonable price, especially considering the price of wood at the time. So we got almost all the ones that they had. I took them home and began dreaming about my garden. I placed the boxes in what we call our barnyard, a fenced-off section in our yard. There is a corner of it that gets enough sunlight for a garden, and I decided a square formation would be best and cutest. There were a lot of moss-covered cinder blocks that were just discarded in the back of our property, and they made the perfect risers for these beds. I got a little bit of a late start on my garden, getting married and moving and all. So I went to Home Depot and picked out some plants that had already been started. Now, while I plant my garden, I like to pretend that I'm a 1940s housewife planting a victory garden to help with the war effort. Filling the beds with dirt was probably my least favorite part of this process. It was very labor-intensive and time-consuming. But then I gotta plant my plants. There is just something about gardening that is just so peaceful and exciting all at once. I planted quite the variety of bell peppers, one of every color I could find at the store. And then I also planted, of course, a tomato plant and okra, and I tried some broccoli and cauliflower, but that didn't really work out well. Swiss chard, Pak Choy, and of course a whole table of herbs, but that's a whole nother video. So phase 1 of my victory garden is complete. We got all of the vegetables planted in the boxes, but we are running out of daylight and dirt to plant the potatoes. So that'll be phase 2. And then we also have a phase 3, but we have to get some barrels before we can do that. But today I planted at least 4 pepper plants. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 normal cauliflower, 2 purple cauliflower, a tomato, 4, 5, 6 okra plants, 2 things of cabbage, and those are really like the more traditional victory garden things that we planted. And then we planted Pak Choy and another pink thing. Let's see. And then we planted Pak Choy and Swiss Chard, which are 2 kind of just fun things. Could have been in 1940s victory garden, I highly doubt it. But all the other things I think are very much to the time period. And of course potatoes will be very much time period. So we have potatoes and sweet potatoes. I love sweet potatoes. They're like one of my favorite things. I also just love potatoes. Potatoes are great. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it worked out. I've always wanted a garden, and now I finally am a grown-up with my own house and money to buy plants and beds and have a wonderful husband who will haul dirt for me. So yeah, now it's time to water it in. The garden grew and grew until it was time for the first harvest. The first veggies that were ready to be picked were the peppers, Swiss chard, and okra. So today I'm going to try to harvest my potatoes. The vines have died back, and from what I've read on the internet, that means that it is time to harvest them. The sweet potatoes are still going strong though. We are right at the end of summer, so I'm gonna harvest them now, and we're gonna see what happens. So here's a little potato, like a little spud. I'm not sure if this is how this is supposed to work. But like all of the vines have definitely died, they're not growing anymore. There's just like a lot of really small ones. The potatoes were a little disappointing. Now, after some research, it looks like I did not give the potatoes enough nitrogen in the soil, and that's where, well, it went wrong. Also, I looked it up, and Swiss chard was actually a rather popular plant in Victory gardens, just in case you were wondering. The weather then started to get, well, not quite as hot as it had been, and the tomato plant became much happier again. It was growing so much that I had to stake it up. I tried to use all natural things in the garden to stick them up, so I had a bunch of wood sticks that I would tie them to with cord. But all too soon fall came and it was time for the last harvest. I harvested the last few okra that were left on the stalks. And it was time to harvest the sweet potatoes, and as I brushed away those dead leaves, I prayed that there were actually good-sized sweet potatoes to be found under that dirt. And my prayers were answered with one, what I would consider normal-sized sweet potato. I also pulled up all of my little onions and added them to my basket. So I feel like my first garden did pretty well for the fact that I had never had a large garden before, that I had never grown most of those plants before, and was generally just inexperienced, as you are when you try something for the first time. But I feel like it went pretty well, and I got so much okra, more okra than I knew what to do with, truly. We actually froze some of it, and then, yeah, we only use it if we are going to make fried okra or gumbo. So otherwise, it's not great. So thankfully, we will have that for those dishes. But I think, I'm trying to think what my favorite thing to grow was. I really liked growing the herbs, like mint was amazing, and the lemon balm. I liked growing the tomatoes a lot and making tomato sandwiches. That's something I need to do more, is I realized I only had one dish photographed and documented of what I had made with like anything from my garden. So that's something I want to do more of next year, is to actually document the things that I make, using the stuff from my garden to show y'all, and just for my own like enjoyment to look back on. And yeah, the Swiss chard, we really liked the Swiss chard. We thought that was good. Lucky, I know your favorite was the catnip. You don't? Okay. We all know. It's okay. But yeah, the potatoes were a disappointment. The sweet potatoes were okay. They were slightly better than the actual potatoes. I don't think I'll be doing those next year. I did nothing in terms of fertilizer or anything, because I really just wanted to get a baseline to see what would it look like if I didn't. Like, what is that going to be? I do think I need some. I want to be very, of course, picky and choosy about what I use on the plants. I want it to be good for us and the planet. But I do think I want to try some next year, just because I feel like my plants needed more nutrients to produce more and to be healthier themselves. The position in my garden doesn't have like the most sunlight, but there's nothing I can really do about that besides taking down some trees, and I don't really want to do that. I think it has enough sunlight where obviously things grew and it was fine. So, but if I had to be really picky about it, I guess like I would like a little bit more sunlight. But then also it kind of takes away from like the pretty kind of wooded area that we live in. So I don't want to take down the trees. But I guess my garden could use a wee bit more sun. But yeah, now it's, I'm looking forward to next year. And I hope you enjoyed this kind of vlog. It's pretty different than like a sewing vlog, but I feel like it still fits the vibe, right? Like the home improvement, the cottagecore feel. I think a lot of y'all enjoy gardening as well. And anyway, please let me know if you liked it down below, so I'll be sure to show you my garden next year if you're interested. And yeah, thanks for watching.